Okay, so now let's clean this up. And I want to set up this test. I want to split this test up into 3 parts. Okay, so just the setup data, the expected values, right? The correct values that we expect corresponding to the setup data. And finally, I'd like us to run the tests. So test. Okay, so the setup data, say for instance 3, 7, and 3, 10, and 7, right? So let say data 1 equal to 3, 10, 7, and then the expected value 1, that will be the value 10, the maximum value. And now we want to run a test, okay? So this will be Xcode test, assert, and I want to do assert equal to. And we can add a message or have a degree of accuracy, especially if you're comparing doubles where equality is not exactly obvious. But for now, I'm not even going to have a message, just compare two expressions. Now, what do we want to compare? Well, we want to compare the expected value, right, to what? Applying our function. But the thing is, right, to our function max. Okay, we have the old max function, but we don't really know, we can't really access our code up here. So we need to import our code. So up over here in imports, let's add the following code. So at testable, import, and now we need just take the name of the app. Okay, and now down here, let's just go back to max, because I don't remember at this point. So max is just some global function. Not exactly the best thing in the world, but okay. And we don't want it confused with a different max. So this is the max we're looking for, x, y, z. Just, I think this is a little confusing. I don't want to use Xcode's max or Swift's max. So let's call this MyMax, so there won't be any confusion. So MyMax. Let's go back to our test. And now MyMax XYZ. So we're going to use data1 dot 0, data1 dot 1, and data1 dot 2. Now we could try to make this a little bit more descriptive, say x, y, z, and then instead of data1.0, we have data1.x, data1.y, and data1.z. And now let's run the test. Now we expect it to be successful, and this is just a coincidence because we defined MyMax to be 10. Right, so build succeeded and the test passed, okay? But if I were to change, say, the example to 11 over here and 11 over here, right, because we expect the maximal value to be 11, this is going to fail, right? And let's see what the comment is. Let's see what we get. So 11 is not equal to 10, right? The expected value was 11. MyMax, the way we defined it, is just 10, right? It's a very poor definition. So let's go back to MyMax and actually define it. So I'm going to say the following. So if x is greater or equal to y, and I recommend that you find your own example, own implementation. And I'm just going to use if statements without using Swift's max function, although I could use it, right? So if x is greater than both x and y, then return x. Else, if y is greater than equal to x and y is greater or equal to z, then return y. Now again, there might be a better implementation. This is just one possible implementation. Finally, return z. And I'd just like to test out one more thing. Let's drop the return statements. And this is another possible implementation, because now this is basically an if expression instead of an if statement as of Swift 5.9. I don't know if it's really more readable or not. Maybe it's better to keep the return. But this should be valid, and I believe this works correctly. Okay, so let's go back to our test. Let's rerun our test. And the test succeeded, because MyMax returned 11. Now this is more for the sake of future-proofing it, right? Maybe in the future we'll have a different implementation of MyMax and we'll break our code. Okay, so now I'd like to run all of these tests over here. And actually, I'd like to go back to the 10 that I had earlier and not the 11. And we could actually have just a lot of data, right? So I could go on to let data 2 equal to, mixing it up. But I think it's easier to just have a data array. So let data array, and let it be the following values. So this, and let's just speed up the video really quick so you just don't get bored. Okay, so we have our data array and their corresponding expected values. I'm going to erase these values over here, and that will cause an issue. And now let's just do for data in data array. And instead of data 1 over here, let's just call this data. And there is no expected value 1. Oh, and actually, let's correct this, excuse me. Let's replace this with I, goes from 0 to the number of elements in data array, in other words, count. And now let's define data to be the data array at position I. And let's let the expected value, I'm not going to call this expected value 1, I'm going to call this expected value, be taken from the expected values array. I just call it expected values at position I. So this is just going to run through all of the values that we chose here, right? So we're substituting in our function, right? If I wanted to, I could call this evaluate, for instance. So let evaluate equal to MyMax at the data array point, and we're comparing the evaluated value. So we could call this evaluated value and expected value. And really, we believe that this is going to run smoothly. But the advantage is really if we change the code in the future, maybe we try to create something more efficient, but introduce a new bug. And it also helps us understand exactly what type of examples we want. Okay, so it passed the test. And also try your own version of Max and check that it, also passed the test. Maybe you have a better version. Okay, great. So we've finished our first unit test. So we're gradually going to move into the app. And yeah, have an amazing day and see you next time.